up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight is going to be movie content. For tonight's video, we are going to go over the 28 movies I watched in the month of October. That is a lot to go over, so I will not be discussing the 2 TV shows I completed, which are Uzumaki and Over the Garden Wall. I will wait until my November wrap up to discuss those, but we got a lot going on. Just a few warnings. We're going to be talking with wet hair because I just took a shower. This is the only time I have to film, and unfortunately it's when my neighbors are blasting music so loud. My ceilings are fucking shaking. So I'm going to try to enunciate, project my voice to not pick that up as much as possible. And also I'm going to mention my rewatches, but I'm probably not going to go as in-depth as I would the other movies. So let's jump right in. The first movie I watched in the month of October is actually a new to me movie I don't have too much to say about, and that is The Invisible Man. This is about a scientist who makes himself invisible and he wants to go on a killing spree. This is a fun one. The main character is kind of a dick, but it made, not kind of, he really is a dick because he's a murderer, but it made for a really fun story. And I really liked the graphics in this film. This came out in 1933, so I was really excited to see how they would do that. I mean, there's certain scenes where you could definitely tell they probably took a strip of film and put it on another strip of film just because the borders are really wonky, but then there's others where they definitely, maybe, I don't want to say definitely, I don't know what they did, but it's so seamless. Like, there's scenes where he takes the wrapping, it's the scenes where he takes the wrapping off his face, so like half his face has that wrapping and the other half is just invisible. I don't know how they did that back then, but honestly, I really liked it because it wasn't as uncanny as invisible characters are today, which is saying a lot because this movie is going to be 100 years old soon. I gave this movie 3 out of 5 stars. The next movie is a rewatch, and that is the first live-action Scooby-Doo. In this movie, the gang goes on their separate ways in the beginning, and they have to go to a haunted amusement park that brings them together. I haven't seen this since college. I like this movie, but I tend to not love it as much as other people do. I could never remember my reason why until I rewatched it again. So now that it's still in my memory, I think the reason I have a hard time loving this is because the characters don't feel how they feel in other Scooby-Doo cartoons. I feel like Fred is smarter in the cartoons, and Daphne, she's not as like aloof as she is in this live action. Velma in the cartoons has more confidence in herself. Shaggy and Scooby are the exact same. So I think it's just those 3, the fact that they're so different from their cartoon counterparts just kind of bothers me a bit, but it's still overall a fun movie. Then I went to the theater and saw a movie that is universally hated, and I am unfortunately part of that group. I actually did not look up how to say this before filming this, so I'm going to apologize for butchering this, but I saw Joker Folie à Deux. I'm gonna look that up. That really bothered me how I said that. Hold on, please hold.
Folie à deux.
So I mean, I wasn't wrong. I just said it in an American accent and not a French one. But this movie is a sequel to Joker, which I really enjoy. So I was upset that I did not like this one. But in this movie, Arthur, aka Joker, is currently in jail, and he's going to be on trial for the crimes he committed in the first movie. And he concocts this plan with Harley Quinn to get out of it, essentially. It's a musical. I don't know why so many people online were shocked about that, because Warner Brothers has been very honest about it since this movie's beginnings back in 2021. So keep that in mind, and I am a musical lover, and I still have things to say about this. I will say before I get into it, my general thoughts on this film is that it was so disappointing. I was almost insulted by it because I liked the first movie so much. Having said that, I do want to go over the things I liked about this film. The musical element, I have issues with the music itself, and I will get to that, but the fact that the musical was within Arthur's head rather than throughout the whole movie, I really enjoyed. I really felt that stark contrast between what was happening in real life versus what was happening in his head. Then the next thing I liked is that in this movie, it's Harley Quinn manipulating Joker. Usually I see the opposite, the Joker manipulating Harley, so I like that the author dared to be original. I always have to credit people for that. When it comes to things I didn't like, it's kind of scrambled. It's a very long list, so forgive me if I am all over the place. But the first thing I want to talk about is the action and the crime. This is more of a crime story than an action story. Crime drama, I think, is how I want to word that. Just because it's a villain origin story of sorts. And when I go into villain origin stories, I want my villains to be bad. Like, that's what you're going towards. I want more action. I want to see more evilness. And that wasn't really happening in this film. So I think part of the reason why I didn't like this movie is just looking at it through a broad lens like that, it's just not for me. This is not my type of villain origin story. But my biggest complaint about this movie, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is that the way this was written, and I kind of get why the director did this, but at the same time, like, dude, it's written in a way where you can tell the director was really disappointed in the few that idolized Joker in the first movie and didn't get the hint that we weren't supposed to. So he made this film to set them straight. And the reason that bothered me personally is because I feel like most of the people who watched the first movie didn't need this lesson. Like, most of us got it. A lot of it came off as very on the nose. It wasn't exactly subtle. So yeah, overall, it's a good lesson for those who like the first movie for the wrong reasons, but it's annoying for the rest of us. And it also, this is not in my notes, but I'm thinking about it right now. Like, for those who like the first movie for the wrong reasons, would they even see what's going on in this movie? Like, or would they just hate this even more than the rest of us do? You know what I mean? And going back to the musical numbers themselves, like, I liked the idea that they're in his head, but when it comes to the musical numbers themselves, it felt scared to be a musical. I was expecting something more grandiose, especially because it's in his head. If it's in his head, go big or go home. But they weren't the big spectacle I wanted them to be. It was just low, soft singing on a stage. Lady Gaga obviously outsang Joaquin Phoenix. The guy obviously can't sing, so I'm sure that's why the musical numbers aren't spectacles, but like, if you're gonna make me watch this musical movie, go all out. Go big or go home. Don't be so afraid to make it a musical. But that's also another critique of mine when it comes to this movie, like when it comes to continuity. If the first one wasn't a musical, why make this one a musical? And then it begs the question, which came first, Lady Gaga or the script for this film? And last but not least, this was a painfully boring movie. Oh my god, I think when this movie ended, when the credits started rolling, there was a sigh of relief in my theater, and I saw this opening day in a very full theater, and not a lot of people stayed back to see if there's a post-credit scene. We all huffed and puffed and got out as soon as we could. So in conclusion, this was a sequel that did not need to be made, and I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Then I watched the 2024 version of Salem's Lot. This is based on a Stephen King novel where this guy, I forgot what his job was, but he goes back to his childhood home and he's noticing the people are either disappearing or turning into weird creatures, such as vampires. And this movie was also garbage, but not in the unfun way that the Joker sequel was. This was actually, to me, so bad it was good. It was like so bad, but in a made-for-TV way, which sometimes those movies are baller, because like they're just so bad you can't help but laugh. In this movie, the lighting's terrible, the acting's terrible, some of it felt like it should have been on Disney Channel, and there's absolutely no character development. It's just one plot point to another, and there's no reason for you to care about any of these characters. It's just some guy doing something. Why do I care he's climbing under the bed? I don't know. When I say it's going from one plot point to another, just with nothing in between, that just leads me to something I read about this movie. This movie was apparently supposed to be over 3 hours long. Whatever company forced them to cut it, and you can definitely tell just because they decided to cut all the character development. There's nothing in between any of these plot points. I also wish this was more so like the book, because I read the book back when I was like, it was my last year of college, so I was 21. I'm 27 now, so it's been a while. But in the book, I remember everyone in the town turning into vampires. Like, the story from beginning to end was much more gradual than it is in the movie. Because in the book, you get to meet different individuals as they turn, and you don't meet them as vampires right away. You meet them like as they're getting bit, and then we see them again when they're in the midst of turning, and then we see them at the end of the novel. But in this movie, one moment we only have one vampire, and then shit happens with our main characters who are human, and then all of a sudden, without being shown how this was done, Near the last 20 minutes of the movie, everyone's a vampire, and we never saw the process for that happening. So yeah, it's not good. This is definitely a movie you watch on a drunk night with friends, or if you just need some background noise, or if you just need something mindless like I did at the time. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Poltergeist for the first time. This is about a family living in a house with an evil entity and the daughter disappears. And this concept used to scare the shit out of me as a kid. For years, I was so scared to watch this, just not knowing what the movie was. I just heard that concept and I was like, no thank you. But now that I've finally seen the movie and saw that it was just like another, gimmicky might be too harsh of a word, but just another horror movie from the 80s, because they all tend to have like a certain feel to them, I feel very middle of the road about this film. I don't really have a specific reason to feel that way, other than that to me this movie was a goofy fun rather than a scary fun. I think I just missed a certain benchmark for when to watch this and thoroughly enjoy it, because watching this now it just came off as like really corny. But again, it was a goofy fun, so I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Barbarian, and this is about a woman who goes to her Airbnb in Detroit, Michigan, and there is a stranger already there. That is all I could say about this film, because it is told in 3 distinct different acts, and at no point did I ever know where this movie was going. Minor spoiler, but Act 1, red herring. Really liked that, and it also had one of the scariest moments I've ever seen in film. It was the suddenness, the lighting, the sound, and just the subversion of expectations for this film, because I definitely thought this film was going to go one way, and then just that scene alone changed things. When it comes to Act 2, I was very confused because it felt like a totally different movie. I legitimately thought my streaming service changed it on me, but let me tell you, Justin Long does such a great job at playing the worst fucking asshole you have ever met. And then in Act 3, it all comes together as these type of films usually do, and literally no. If you were to spoil this movie for me, I don't think I would believe you, just because it's that out there. The Thing is disgusting and gross, and one of the grossest things I've ever seen in a horror movie. I'm sorry, I actually wanted to puke when it popped up on screen. And credit where credit is due, I was really expecting them, this is another spoiler but I don't care, I was expecting them to redeem Justin Long's character, and I'm really glad they did it. I'm actually glad they kept the asshole character an asshole. This was a really fun one. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I had a couple friends come over, so we watched 2 movies together because one of them had never seen Hocus Pocus, which is about the 3 witches of Salem coming back to life after a virgin lights the candle. I really like this movie. Actually, my first time watching it was in college, so this is not a childhood movie for me, but I really like this movie. She really loved it. She thinks it's super campy and had a blast with it. And this was actually supposed to be our one movie of the night, but then she let slip that she had never seen The Nightmare Before Christmas before. And y'all, this is my favorite movie of all time. So of course I had to force her to watch this too. It wasn't even on the list this year, but if you tell me you've never seen this movie, then we are watching it. But then the next movie I watched is a new to me movie, and that is Jennifer's Body. This movie is about a girl who nearly everyone is attracted to. Her name is Jennifer. One night she goes off with some seedy people, and she comes back an even bigger bitch than she already is, and she just starts killing people. This was fun, don't get me wrong, and we love the empowerment of women. I was just, the way this movie's talked about in certain circles, I was just expecting a lot more. Someone actually warned me about how gory this was. She's like, you better not be eating while you're watching it. I didn't think that this was that gory at all. Gore usually affects me too, but I thought this was pretty average, like exactly what I would expect from an average horror movie. And then the people who adore this movie always talk about how campy it is, but I was definitely expecting a bit more in that department. So for me, I think this is like a one and done movie, but I did give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched The Thing, the original version from the 80s, and this is about a group of scientists who are studying in the Arctic, and a creature, the Thing, shows up in their study field, and suddenly they don't know who to trust as it affects the living beings around it. Admittedly, this movie was a bit too slow going for my taste in the beginning of the film, but it had definitely captured me by the end. The end is greatly debated, and I could definitely see why, and it's actually part of what made this movie so great, and the fact that it's hotly debated to this day from what I saw online. And I just thought this movie did a really good job capturing isolation and the fear that can create, and just how suddenly you just don't It's like one of those things where you're not physically alone, but you feel alone. You're alone in a crowded room is what I'm looking for. And it creates a certain fear, and you can't trust those around you. And it creates a psychological fear as well with both the characters and the audience, because not only are the characters confused, but you as an audience member are confused too. You don't know who's infected and who's not, and you can really feel everyone's panic as they accuse one another. And we really need to bring back practical effects, because the Thing in this is some of the scariest shit I have ever seen in a movie, and this movie is from 1980, and those effects still hold up. Like, there was nothing uncanny about it. If you told me that was a real creature they found somewhere, I would believe you. Simply believe you. So we need to bring back practical effects. I am so tired of CGI. I gave this film 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Suspiria, which is about a woman who enters a dance school, a ballet school specifically, and she realizes something is amiss. This is another fun movie, but that I just feel okay about overall. I think I like the look and the sound of the movie more than the plot. It has beautiful cinematography with really fun colors, but it does have very weird audio, kind of wonky audio. This is clearly dubbed over. And then other audio, such as the music, doesn't seem well mixed. Like, I could feel it straining the speakers on my TV, and apparently you could feel it straining back then too. And this was actually apparently a problem with Italian films back in the day, specifically within this area in the 70s. So Suspiria is not alone in this, but I feel like for this movie specifically, it works. The distorted audio definitely plays into the sense of fear and the uncomfortable atmosphere, because while she's uncomfortable, I'm definitely uncomfortable, not only visually, but just like listening to the things she has to go through. I gave this movie 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched a short film called Missing Halloween, and this is about 2 trick-or-treaters who befriend each other. This is only 10 minutes long, so there's not a lot to talk about, but it had really cute art, and I really liked the interactions between the 2 main characters. And the plot itself has been done before, but because of the tiny details, my jaw was still on the floor. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Last Man on Earth, and in this movie, Vincent Price is the last human on Earth, and he becomes a vampire hunter. This movie is interesting just because my feelings on it are very wishy-washy. So in the first act, he is quite literally alone. We don't even see the vampires surrounding him. He's just getting his day-to-day life together, cleaning the streets, setting the scene. But then there was also this very weird voiceover. The dialogue was very awkward and on the nose, and I felt like it wasn't needed. It's Vincent Price describing what he is doing as he is doing it. Like, as he's picking up a baseball bat, he's like, oh, well, gotta pick up the baseball bat. And it's like, yes, I see that. And as much as I don't like it, I do understand the choice, because you don't want to be alone with a silent man. I guess it gives the audience something to listen to. I think a movie where a character is silent like that could be done well. I did like Act 2. It's all flashback and really fun. But then Act 3 is where it started to lose me again. I figured it would end the way it did, and I was still kind of upset about that. So because of these wishy-washy feelings, I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched The Menu, which is about a bunch of rich people going to a very specific famous chef so that he can cook for them. Everyone was talking about this movie on Twitter back in the day, and I just missed it until this year. It is a fun movie, but I personally think y'all overhyped it. I really enjoyed the cinematography as they were cooking the food, because I felt like I was watching a cooking show. And I was pleasantly surprised by Ralph Fiennes' character. Is that how you pronounce his last name? I don't actually know. Sorry for butchering that. But he's the main chef. I really liked his character, because going into this, I was expecting just an angry man, like someone clearly based on Gordon Ramsay. But instead, I feel like we got a very quiet and secure man who comes across as nice, even though he isn't necessarily nice. And I have to applaud originality like that. But there's a lot of hype about how deep this movie is. And quite frankly, I think the point of the movie is incredibly on the nose. So because of the hype, I was expecting more. I was expecting something deeper. I was expecting more artistry when it came to telling the story. But acting-wise, everyone did a great job. I love seeing rich people struggle. Despite my grievances, it was still fun, so I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, change of scenery, because it looks like my next door neighbor's fire alarm is going off, and it's super loud in my room to the point I thought it was my building. And I don't think it's turning off anytime soon. Hope everyone's okay, because I just took my dog outside and they all kind of stared at me and they seemed chill, so I don't think it's anything major. But moving on, the next movie I watched is a Netflix original called The Ritual. This is about a group of guys who go on a hiking trip after a friend of theirs has died. And to be honest with you guys, I cannot say anything about this film because I lost interest 20 minutes in. I feel like I've seen so many movies like this, so once I realized what was going on, I was just out of it and kind of bored out of my mind, and what little I was grappling with, I didn't care for any of the characters. The only positive thing I have to say about this is gorgeous, gorgeous music at the end of the film. It had some interesting scenery and an interesting creature, so I can't give this a 1 out of 5 star, but I did give this 2 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Woman of the Hour, which is Anna Kendrick's directorial debut, and this is actually based on a true story, which I did not know going into the film. But this is based on the story on the happenings of a serial killer who was killing women in Los Angeles, and Anna Kendrick goes onto a reality TV show where she has to pick a date between 3 anonymous guys. She doesn't know their names, she can't see them, and he is one of those people. No one recognizes him except for one of his survivors. And I was pleasantly surprised by this because when I think of Anna Kendrick, I think of comedy, and this is by no means a comedy. This is a thriller drama, and I just wasn't expecting this from her, but I really enjoyed it. I had no idea this was based on a true story until the end. So I watched this thinking it was, like, I don't want to say a murder mystery because you know who the killer is right away. But I watched this in the way I would watch a Criminal Minds episode, if you guys have ever seen Criminal Minds. Sorry, I don't know if I should like slouch, stand up straight, or whatever. I don't know if y'all have ever seen Criminal Minds, but in that show, they introduce the perpetrator right away. So you know who the murderer is within the first 5 minutes of the episode. You see them in action. So then the mystery of the show, rather than finding out who done it, the mystery of the show is how is the FBI going to catch this guy? And that is how I watched this movie. How did he get caught? And I don't have much, it's one of those movies where I don't have a lot to say other than that it was super tense and uncomfortable. I felt the fear of every woman in this movie. New fear unlocked, like how do I know there's not a murderer prowling the streets now stalking me sort of issue. Good for Anna Kendrick. This is a great debut. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched another short film that actually made one of my top 10 movies of the year, and that is Robert Edgar's The Telltale Heart. This is based off the Edgar Allan Poe story where there is a guy, he is the servant to his older master. The master's eye is really scaring him and they're ticking of the heart. The classic story we all had to, a lot of us, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of us had to read in school, or if you're an Edgar Allan Poe fan, you know what I'm talking about. But this is from the creator of The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman, and then the upcoming remake of Nosferatu. This is a clearly low budget film, but it added some charm to it because rather than watching this from like a Hollywood camera, we're watching this from something smaller scale, and I feel like that really added to the fact that this is a period piece. It takes place in the 1800s. Like, it felt old and it worked for this older story. The set designs and the costumes are apparently incredibly accurate, and then what I really like was the repetition of scenes and like the slight differences in order to show our main character getting crazier. And I really like the use of sound in this film because it's one of those movies where there's no sound until suddenly there's so much of it. It starts out really quiet, the ticking is very quiet, but then as our main character gets crazier, the ticking gets louder and faster because it matches his deterioration rate. In the beginning, I thought this was going to be a silent film because there's no talking until the last 5 minutes, and it's soft-spoken until suddenly the main character's just screaming, and you can really feel how crazy he has become. It left me unsettled like the original short story did, so I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Malignant, which is about a woman who's taken over by this evil entity, and she can see their murders as he is performing them. I was warned by some of my friends to expect a bad movie but a great time, and that is exactly what I got. There's something about the campiness of this film that didn't really resonate with me, but I was still having fun just because there was a plot twist I could not see coming. What in the first Harry Potter story? I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched another vampire movie called El Conde, and this is about a politician in Chile who is a vampire and he wants to die, but his family will not let him. I went into this movie because it's an Oscar-nominated film. I think it was nominated for international film. I thought the cinematography was beautiful. I really liked that it's in black and white. It's about vampires. I went into this thinking I was gonna have a good time, and I did not. I wasn't expecting it to be about a dictator, and I was kind of really uncomfortable in the beginning because I was like, what am I supposed to feel for this guy? Like, I didn't know if we were supposed to hate him or support them. So before I got too deep into the film, I did look it up, And this is apparently using real life people, but satirizing them. So this is actually a political satire. So as soon as I read that, the tone of the movie made much more sense. And then I got the hint that we weren't particularly supposed to like this guy. But then I lost interest because that's not what I went into this movie for. And then once I was learning more, the less interested I became in this film. I didn't really think it was a effective satire, and it's also a fucking slog. So I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. And then I went on a rewatch binge. The first movie I rewatched in this binge is Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. This is the second live action Scooby-Doo. And then this one, Monsters Are Coming to Life. Monsters that they already captured because they're all in the museum and now the costumes are doing their thing, whole shebang. I will say I do think this is more fun than the first one, but I was using it for background noise. I was actually using most of these for background noise because I watched all these movies on a day off, so I was cleaning house, just doing whatever I had to do. But minus being more fun, my thoughts are pretty much the same as the first one. Then I watched my favorite Scooby-Doo movie, and that is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. They're all grown up, they're adults doing their own thing. Daphne has her show, Fred helps her, Velma owns a bookstore, Shaggy and Scooby are security at an airport, and something comes up, I think it's actually Daphne's show that causes this, where they have to go to Louisiana and film a haunted house. And as the title suggests, zombies are about. This is still the best Scooby-Doo movie with a plot twist that fucks me up and has a banger of a song. If you haven't seen this yet, what are you doing? Then I watched Paranorman. This movie is made by the same company that made Coraline. In this movie, Norman can speak to ghosts and he has to save his town from an evil witch ghost. This was very cute. It's definitely a feel-good movie once you get to the end, and the backstory of the witch makes me so weepy even to this day. I think this is the 3rd time I've seen this film, and like the 3rd time I sobbed. So I definitely recommend this one if you haven't seen it. Then I went into what I thought was gonna be a rewatch, but the more I watched the movie, the more I realized I had actually never seen it, at least to completion. If I've seen it before, it must have been when I was younger and I never completed it. But that is Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is the one with Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder. And Keanu Reeves. I will talk about why I forgot about him just then. And I really liked this. I think I mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan of the Dracula book, but something about the movies I really enjoyed. And you know what? In my Dracula reaction, the original 30s movie, a lot of people actually came for me when I said this movie was good, because from what I remember of it, the few scenes I have seen, I really enjoyed those scenes. But people argue that they didn't like that I said that. But you know what? I don't care. One of the reasons I love this movie is because I love how theatrical it feels. There's something very Shakespearean about it almost. Like I felt like I was watching a very high-end play. Quite frankly, Keanu Reeves is the only thing I don't like about this movie. I thought his acting was subpar and he is pretty forgettable, which is why I almost forgot to mention in the beginning of this review. But Winona Ryder and Gary Oldman ate that up. It took me way too long to realize why Gary Oldman looks like Sirius Black. I was staring, there's that one scene where he's no longer like the old looking Dracula, and I'm staring at him like, why is Sirius Black on my screen? I figured it out. But the two of them, something about them, that ending was so beautiful too, but something about them was just very enchanting, and it was hot. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched another short film because I was trying to watch 31 horror movies from August 1st to October 31st, new to me, and I was running behind, so I used this kind of as a cheat. And that is La Combina, or The Telephone Booth. This is a Spanish film, and in this one, the guy gets stuck in a telephone booth. I really like the silent film style acting in this. I thought that was pretty enjoyable, but otherwise, this movie is not for me. I feel like I've seen something like this before, so I gave this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then I finally watched The Shining for the first time, and this is about a man and his family who move into a hotel because he takes the job as like security, I think it is, while the hotel is on its downtime, so he can write his book, but he is slowly going insane. This is one of those movies where I know it's objectively good just because of the technique, the acting, the story itself, like something about it screams objectively good. But for some reason, I personally had to sit on it to decide whether or not I liked it. And I did end up liking it. The first thing that caught my eye was definitely the cinematography, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. Even if I didn't like the film per se, I would have still liked the cinematography. But going on, everyone in this movie acted their fucking asses off. Shelley Duvall, I can't believe her performance got panned when this first came out, because I thought the fear she felt in this was palpable. Jack, played by Jack Nicholson, his descent into madness was wonderfully done. Like, despite the runtime and people saying there's more to it in the book, I think as a movie adaptation, it was still gradual and believable. It didn't go from plot point to plot point. Like, there was actually something in between. And then his actions, as messed up as they were, they made sense. And the child actor. What happened to great child actors? I miss great child actors because this kid is one of the best. The one thing that still does bother me about this film, though, is the concept of The Shining. It is explained in the film, but there was something about the explanation where I wanted more of it. I thought there was more lore to explore there, but I think that's just the fault of the runtime because I did read that it makes much more sense in the book. I gave this movie 4 out of 5 stars. So then I was having a bad night. I needed a movie that I didn't need to think too hard about, something I could, you know, pay attention to while scrolling through my phone or doing a puzzle. So I ordered a pizza and watched the Disney Channel original movie, Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire. This is about 2 kids who are grounded even though they have plans, so they decide to put their mom on a date so they could sneak out of the house. However, her date is a vampire. Specifically, Mr. Sheffield as a vampire. If you've seen The Nanny, that Mr. Sheffield, so that definitely caught me off guard. And I mean, I was not expecting much from this movie because it's a Disney Channel movie. I think a lot of us are familiar with the type of acting we see on Disney Channel. However, I thought in this movie the acting sucked even for those standards. Like, the bar is in hell. The main character was also pretty annoying and obnoxious, and I'm clearly too old to be watching this, but it was like the fun, dumb movie I needed at the time. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. This is about 2 comedians, Abbott and Costello. I forgot what their fictional names are, but they are trying to drop off packages not knowing one contains Dracula and the other contains Frankenstein, and Dracula needs Frankenstein to take over the world. A lot of people have recommended this movie to me. Hello. And I didn't know what to expect and like humor-wise just because given the time period, but I had a great time with this movie. This movie was hilarious, especially Costello. I thought he was more so the star than Abbott was. And I've seen a lot of the original films this pulls from because this includes The Wolf Man, The Invisible Man at the very end, obviously Frankenstein, and like I said, Dracula. I've seen all those movies, so it was nice seeing these monster characters come together again. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And then the last movie I watched in October is The Monster Squad. This is about a group of boys who find out the monsters they are obsessed with are real, and they need to save the world because these monsters want to take over. This is a cult classic and I can easily see why. It's very low budget, but it's a very fun film. I use this for background noise, admittedly, but it was extremely easy to follow. I was doing a puzzle, I was doing some nanoblocks scrolling through my phone, but I didn't really miss a beat. It had really charming characters, and it's just a very fun adventure that I would have adored as a kid. Funny enough, it's very clearly based on Abbott and Costello's Meet Frankenstein, so I watched these at a perfect time. Like, that timing was impeccable. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. And that is it for this video. Sorry this was kind of a chaotic mess, whether it was the sound or just the backdrop, whatever you are seeing, like visually, I guess, things I'm saying. My throat is dry and my stomach is growling, and Arcane Season 2 Volume 2 is calling my name. So I am gonna end it here. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. And without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao, tutti.